everybody. Welcome to Mass Effect, a retrospective. I'm Geoff Keighley from GTTV and Game Trailers. It's a really special afternoon for us here at PAX East, and that we've got some of the key guys behind the Mass Effect team here in front of all you guys to celebrate an amazing franchise. Just by a show of hands, how many of you guys started playing Mass Effect back with the first game? Seems like majority rules. So you guys have been with the franchise for how many years has it been, Casey? 8, 9?
9 at this point,
9 years.
Is that about right?
When Mass Effect began. So today we're really going to sort of look back at the franchise and celebrate what it has meant to all of us, certainly as a defining franchise for this generation of games. So let me first of all introduce folks on the panel here who probably don't need introduction, but first of all, of course, we have Casey Hudson, the EP and project director of Mass Effect from BioWare, of course. Next to him, we have Preston Watamaniuk. Not quite right, but how do you say it, Preston? Last name?
Watamaniuk.
Watamaniuk. All right. He's the lead designer who's been with the franchise and Casey's partner on a lot of this from the beginning. Also, of course, with BioWare. Next to him, we have Mr. Parrish Ley. You guys know him as the cinematics director for all those amazing cinematic moments that we've had in Mass Effect. Then we've got John Dombrow. John is a writer on the team here. Written some great stuff for Mass Effect. Next to him, we've got Dusty Everman. He's a level designer known for a lot of the great ship moments in Mass Effect history. And finally, a special guest. No, he doesn't have a desk at BioWare, but you know and love him. The voice of Kaden, Raphael Sbarge. Hi. So an awesome panel of folks, and you guys just wrapped up the Citadel DLC. A lot of you guys played Citadel by show of hands? All right, so you guys are still the last piece of Mass Effect 3 content. But we really wanted to look back at the history of Mass Effect and look forward to what you guys can expect in the future from BioWare and the Mass Effect team. As some of you may know, I wrote a story about the making of Mass Effect 3 called The Final Hours of Mass Effect 3, so I spent a lot of time with a lot of the guys on the panel hearing the history of Mass Effect. But Casey, for people that may not have read that or may not be familiar with it, tell us about Mass Effect, roll back the clock, 8, 9 years ago, or even a little longer, I guess, when you first conceived of it. What were you trying to achieve? And what was the origins of this? Because you guys really wanted to create your own story after Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yeah, so we had developed Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and we had a ton of fun making that game. When we got the opportunity to work on the Star Wars game, we just couldn't believe how lucky we were. And we had a ton of fun working on that and building the Star Wars universe out for the little piece that we had. And then by the time we got to the end of that, we were, it kind of felt like we had done that experience, as amazing as it was. And there were things that we wanted to try and take on that we kind of felt we needed a new universe that was kind of designed to do those things. And we were looking at the next generation. At that time, we knew that whatever we would do next would be on the next Xbox. We didn't know what it would be. It was called Xenon at the time and had no idea how it would work. But we kind of had a feeling we would be able to take on digital acting and emotion and that kind of storytelling. So we thought, let's try and build a science fiction universe that was meant to tell these kinds of emotional stories. And so that was kind of the genesis of Mass Effect. We knew we wanted to make this world. We wanted to work together on another really cool action RPG and achieve a lot of this kind of similar stuff that we did with the KOTOR game, but kind of expanded out a bit.
Now, Preston, I know the game and the gameplay has evolved from what Mass Effect 1 was to Mass Effect 3 in terms of blending action and role-playing games. Tell us about sort of the evolution of that and where you guys started to where you ended up.
Well, when we finished KOTOR, that was kind of my basis for what an action RPG was. And I set out to do something that, heavier shooter mechanics and whatnot like that. And the real transition happened, for me between 1 and 2, where I wanted to focus more on, gameplay that the player could experience and see. And that philosophy has been carrying through to 3, where I think that the guys have been doing all the multiplayer and class stuff, have been making sure that you can see all the stuff instead of hiding it behind walls of stats and stuff like that. Even though that's all in there, it's just, I wanted to make sure it's wrapped in gameplay.
Right. Now, you guys, obviously had incredible gameplay in Mass Effect, but I think a lot of what all of us loved about it was the incredible world that you guys created, the incredible characters in the universe. We're going to spend a lot of time now talking about, some of your memories and favorite characters and inside stories that I'm sure a lot of the fans want to hear. But one thing we should sort of talk about a little bit is obviously, it was a year ago, I guess, when Mass Effect 3 came out, and this year SimCity got the wrath of the internet, but last year there was a lot of controversy around Mass Effect 3 when it came out, and that it's all behind us, and I think there have been a lot of great DLCs that have come out. The Citadel, I think, was a phenomenal way to wrap up the trilogy and the extended cut. Casey, wanted to at least give you a chance to sort of talk to the fans a little bit about sort of that experience and sort of where things have ended up now, because I think you guys like the Citadel? You played it? It's good to hear. So what has that experience been like you for sort of for the past year, to talk about sort of the extended cut, the DLC, and sort of the ending and all that, everything that came with it?
Yeah, when everything that we do and what we talk about as we're building stuff, it's all about trying to create magical and memorable experiences for people. So of course, that's what we would have wanted everyone to feel about the endings. And so as we were working on the game, we're working super crunch time all throughout the project, and then especially towards the end, we're heads down, really just trying to finish out the story that we've written. And one thing that we didn't anticipate, and it just kind of had no way for us to get perspective on, was what it's like for a fan, especially as we're kind of wringing out these really deep emotions throughout the third story. We had no way to sense what it's like for fans to go through that emotional arc and arrive at the ending, and what those fans really wanted to see more of. And by the time we got to releasing the Citadel, we had hours of content in there, just spending time with characters and living in the universe. And that's something that we didn't really have a sense of. And then when we saw the feedback from the endings, we were very careful to listen to all that feedback, and when we were able to kind of get our heads up, look at how things turned out, look what fans were asking for, that's when we realized, there are things that we wanted to add. We were actually really excited to build out some of these things that the fans were saying that they wanted to see more of. And so that kind of led to the extended cut, where we got really excited again, really passionate about building some of these moments out, kind of rounding out the experience for people. And the other side of it is that we knew some of the things that were coming, like the DLCs that we would have, more adventures for Shepard, and then more time in something like the Citadel to spend with your friends and your squad members and stuff like that. So that's kind of been our journey, is we always want to listen to our fans, build that feedback into what we're doing. Ultimately, what we do is interactive entertainment, and it's true on a meta sense as well. A lot of the way that the trilogy unfolded was looking at what characters people liked, looking at kind of experiences people wanted, and then building that into the ongoing story of the series.
Yeah, and there was advocates on the team for, we'd make decisions where in the third game there was a potential, we had talked about maybe not putting Tali in as a full squad mate. And there were passionate people on the team who were like, no, you got to put Tali in. Tali's got to be in there. And so it was Patrick Weeks, actually. You can thank Patrick and some of the writers. And they worked on me for about a week. And I said, well, Patrick, if you're going to put her in, that's going to be some work for you, because she might not be alive for some people's games. And he's like, I don't care. I want to do it. So Casey and I talked about it, and we're like, well, if he's passionate about it, it means there's people out there that are passionate about it. And so we put her back in. So, but it's that's the thing that makes it great, is that there are team members out there who are passionate about every little bit of the content, and they want to make it as best as they can. So
yeah, so much of this has been really a grand experiment into things we can't really visualize until they're done. So when we were working on Mass Effect, another example was thinking about characters like Garrus and Tali, and we know we're building these alien characters that we weren't sure if people would have the kind of attachment to them where you'd want a love interest. But even for ourselves, seeing how they turned out, a character like Garrus, Garrus is just an awesome guy. It's just so when we actually see the performance and the character and the way that character turns out, we realize, and of course, then listening to fan feedback, we realize, we should start bringing this in as a romantic character.
Yeah, on Mass Effect 3, I had the honor of writing Garrus, so it was such a pleasure it was a lot of fun to see especially the romance, the femsheps who love their Garrus, and I did my best to take all that love to heart and try and put it back out there and give you guys something to really enjoy. But that's not something we ever counted on initially, but there you are.
Now, we talked a lot about sort of favorite characters. Maybe we just go down the panel and just sort of hear from you guys about who some of your favorite characters were. Maybe we'll start at the end with Raphael, because I probably have a guess. But any favorite characters, favorite moments from the Mass Effect franchise?
There's too many to pick, right? I don't want anyone to feel. Look, just being. Let me talk about it. Let me actually sort of sidetrack and just answer your question by saying just what it's like to be in the middle of the game as a character, and
sure.
And just how incredible the to be on this side and to feel kind of the emotion and the passion that the Mass Effect universe has for its characters. I mean, this is the reason why we come in and sort of, that is, the actors get to sort of be the frosting on this extraordinary cake. But I can tell you is it's an incredible experience. I've sort of said it sort of feels the closest I'll ever feel to what it feels like to be a Beatle, I think,
Well, people loved your work in the entire franchise. Let me ask some of the other guys on the panel here about favorite characters from the franchise. Parrish, are you going to finally pledge your allegiance?
No, well, so I've been on the project since Mass 1, so any of the Mass 1 henchmen, I've got a soft spot for. I feel like we've had some great arcs with them. But you know what? So my favorite character and scene is from Mass 2 with a character called the Collector General, and I don't think I don't think that was an external facing name, but that was Harbinger, so the little kind of arachnid collector boss, and at the end, Harbinger kind of abandons him just to get blown up. But he was a great character, and we had a lot of fun animating him and getting a great performance out of him. So he's kind of a minor character, but one that, I think we really hit something nice with him.
Dusty, what about for you?
So there's so many characters that I love, and I feel I'm supposed to say Kaden.
No.
But it's really hard to choose. But I think I'd actually have to say Joker, because the Normandy's very, very close to my heart, and Seth Green is just a hoot. And definitely, I think the most fun I've ever had as a designer was during Mass Effect 2. There's a moment where Shepard leaves the Normandy, and the collector ship comes, and you play as Joker. And the writer for that, Luke, fantastic writer, he gave Seth Green instructions to just basically record a bunch of versions of a certain curse. And so there was just a whole bunch of lists, and one of them, it was like just so hilarious, where it was the read from Seth Green, where it's like, what the shit? And it's like, so I had this line that I loved, and I listened to it over and over and over, and I was like, where do I put this line in this sequence, this scripted sequence from beginning to end? And it was just so precious to me, because it's a very grim thing, but his humor's so great. So, thank you, Seth.
Good vote. Now, we actually have something really cool here to show you guys, which is an infographic. I think this is the first time you guys are revealing some of these stats about Mass Effect 3 specifically. We're speaking about favorite characters and things like that. And you can actually look at this and see some, I think, somewhat surprising results here, especially things like genophage and characters and who survived. Any of you guys, Casey, Preston, anyone want to sort of talk about what you guys were surprised about when you pulled these stats?
I think I was actually really surprised by the swing from Paragon to Renegade. We'd always gotten a lot of press and talk about the Renegade actions in the game, but then we actually got the data back and we found out the majority of players were actually Paragon. That's what I play. So I think then we got follow-up questions from people say, well, if most people play Paragon, why did you Renegade? And we'd always push back and say, it's actually important. You're more Paragon if you're actually given the opportunity to be a renegade and turn it down. And so that's always been one of the important things, is that we want to put both those choices in there, even though more people may be choosing one or the other. So because it defines how you're playing the game. It's your character.
Some interesting stuff on there. I know Genephage, Morton, and some of the percentages. I mean, did you talk about that? I mean, some people say like, oh, well, should it be 50-50, or I mean, like, some one is, I think, was it 3% for one of them or something like that, or 8 maybe. Genephage. I mean, was that surprising to you guys, or?
I don't think so, because I think, like a lot of people, Rex is one of the star characters. Like, I've always loved Rex. He's my favorite character, and so if you carried Rex through the entire trilogy and got him to that moment, who's not going to cure the Genephage, right? So I think there's some things, like the one I'm actually shocked by, though, is that more people saved the Geth than the Quarians. That one was actually very surprising. Because that was actually one of the hardest conversations I had to have on the trilogy, was going into Patrick Weekes' office, who is the writer for Tally, and saying, if they chose the Geth, I think we have to kill Tally. And Patrick kind of looked at me, with sad eyes, and said, but he knew I was right, but it took him a couple of days before he goes, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. It's the right decision to make. So, but that was a hard conversation, because I love Tally, and I think she's one of our foundation characters. But if you're going to make that hard choice and choose the Geth, there's going to be a cost to that. So, which is one of the parts of the trilogy I love. So. Yeah,
I remember we had the same equally difficult conversation with Patrick, where if you decide not to cure the Genephage, you're going to have to shoot Morton, Patrick, who you created. So we're killing off all your babies here.
Yeah. And when you guys see stats like that, I mean, how does that inform? Does that inform sort of game design moving forward, or thinking about the franchise? I mean, what do you sort of take away from that besides like, oh, that's interesting?
Well, the percentages have changed a lot over time. Like, the percentage for Soldier actually used to be much higher. And it's dropped over time, because I think more people, they'll play one class and then they'll go in and try another class. So it's actually balanced out a lot more. But something like the Engineer, again, people ask, well, why do you do the Engineer if only 5% of the players play it? Well, it's again because we know there are players out there that love the Engineer. I love the Engineer.
Let's hear it for the Engineer fans out there.
So, we've always tried to, even in the story, we make decisions which we know not a lot of people will see, but for me, it's really important that we're still speaking for those people. The love interest from Mass Effect 1, if you didn't cheat on them in Mass Effect 2, you get that scene with the picture. Those are important moments for people that made decisions, and it's critical that we support that.
Yeah, I think the data actually also really helps us when we do see that not a lot of people are picking something. Ideally, we're making a pretty agonizing choice between different things. And part of that would suggest that there's kind of an even breakdown. It's definitely true that you want to make sure that you have the choice, so that even if a lot of people aren't taking it, then you're just that much more empowered. But when we look back at things like the classes, we can try and figure out, okay, why is it that people weren't picking certain classes? Talk to those fans, learn about that, and then we can kind of build those things back in so that we can make certain things work better, or even if it's something about how we do story and characters and stuff like that, building those things back in so that it's a tougher choice between those things, because people value them all and they think they're all really good.
Very cool. And I think that graphic actually is going to be up on the website later if you guys want to dive in even further, see the percentages. Let's talk now a bit about the universe of Mass Effect, and obviously all the incredible planets and races and all the pieces of it that we've grown to love. Maybe we'll start with you, Dusty, talking a little bit about the Normandy, which was something that was a big focus of yours, programming that and bringing that to life across all 3 games. It really became a character of its own, and evolved obviously with each game. Tell us a bit about some of your favorite memories from working on the Normandy and what it was like to to focus on that.
Well, I think what I loved about the Normandy was that, well, the thing I like about Mass Effect most is the relationships you have with all of these characters. And the Normandy is that, safe haven, that quiet place where you get to have those intimate moments. And so as the designer, I was able to really kind of be involved with all of the henchmen. And the design of the Normandy actually kind of is driven from those henchmen, especially the SR2. where, for example, you have Miranda, who's very much the workaholic, and as such, she has an office and a bedroom that's one room. Or you have Jack, who's this asocial psychopath almost. And so where would she be? So we made this little crawl space underneath the stairs for her to hide out in. Or you have Samara, who's very spiritual, so we'd give her a window to look outside. And I had this fond memory talking to the writer for Thane. So I said, okay, we're going to put Thane in the life support room, where the machinery there is going to give off a lot of steam, and it'll be nice and hot and humid. Chris goes, you know that Thane has a disease where his lungs fill with water, and humidity would basically kill him. Oh. Well, you misheard me. When I said life support, the machinery there just sucks the moisture out of the air. It's the driest room on the Normandy. So, it was just kind of that. So, yeah, I'm going to miss the Normandy.
Fun Normandy memories. For all the rest of you guys, maybe we'll start back with you, Raphael, for the universe. I mean, did you have, obviously you were involved in a lot of scenes from the game. When you saw the game, do you have a favorite planet or, a favorite moment from the franchise that stands out to you?
Honestly, I can't say I have a favorite moment. A favorite universe, but having been in 1, 2, and 3, there's been just a tremendous sort of arc of growth for all the characters, specifically as relates to kind of, look, my favorite scenes have always been what is, I think, the hallmark of the game, which is the intimate relationships between the characters. Some of those don't happen. Some of those happen behind closed doors, and that's sort of where from the acting department anyway, where it's been the most engaging. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been amazing character moments across the whole franchise. John, for you, you've obviously written, a lot of scenes for the game. Do you have a favorite sort of planet or, sequence that you remember from the 3?
Patrick and I collaborated on the end of the Genophage mission in Mass Effect 3. Patrick created Morton in 2. And I remember coming to Patrick and saying, well, what do you think we kill off Morton in 3? And he'd often wanted to see Morton come to a noble end. And I think we managed to do that at the end of the Genophage. And it was. I remember we were in a review meeting where everything was starting to come together with the cinematics and the voice acting. And it was just a great feeling to look at the whole team that had worked on it and feel very proud that we'd given Morton this great send-off and hopefully managed to capture an emotional, send-off for a beloved character.
Absolutely. People would agree with that. Parrish, you had quite a few cinematics to do over the 3 games. I'm not sure if there's a moment or a planet that you had more fun working on, or tell us about sort of some of your experiences and your favorite moments.
Well, I think my favorite location is probably the Citadel, because it's been, other than the Normandy, although I love the Normandy, but the Citadel has been a consistent throughout ME. And on ME1, when we did the scene where you first come to the Citadel and you kind of come through the clouds and you roll down, when we got that really working, that was the first time when we really understood, I think, the scope of the universe that we were creating. Just being able to see that kind of crazy, massive space station where each wing is the size of Manhattan emerge out of the clouds. For me, it was a special moment, and then in each game, kind of reintroducing it in new and interesting ways, and then also just all the great times that you have on the Citadel and in the Citadel DLC too. It feels like a familiar place, and I just love going back to it every time. So yeah.
And a lot of these, locations also evolved across the 3 games. I mean, Casey, Preston, maybe you can talk about your favorite areas, but also sort of how some of these things, changed from Mass Effect 1 through to 3.
Well, so for me, one of the interesting moments, obviously, I think the craft of the team and us getting our head around what we could actually achieve really evolved over time, and that some of the actual, I think, best executed moments came later in the series, obviously, as we learned about what we were doing. But I think one of the first moments that we had working really well and kind of showed where we were going and I think showed players where we were going was after your first mission in Mass Effect 1, and Shepard is in sick bay, and then either Ashley or Kaden comes out, and I remember a reviewer commenting on this, that they were playing, and you know, you can play Renegade and Paragon, so they were going to play as Renegade and just be a jerk to everybody. And so Ashley comes in and she says she thinks that maybe the reason you got hurt was her fault. And you can say, yeah, it was your fault. And so he did that, and there was just a moment, she didn't say anything, but she looked like you hurt her feelings, just with her face. And that was for that reviewer when they realized, wow, there's something happening here it's going to make me feel emotions. And they changed the way that they were playing. And I think that for me, I think it's true. If you start the series from the beginning, that's kind of the first moment where you realize these characters are going to draw you in a really interesting way. And then that I think to us was the first time that we realized we were going to do the things that we said we wanted to do on paper, but had never actually seen it yet in our own work, you know, working that way. And then we tried to build the rest of the series to start drawing on that kind of emotion.
Just, can I speak to that for 1 second too? Just again from the actors. I mean, when we first came into Mass Effect 1, what was sort of made very clear to us is that they said, you know, listen, this is different than any other video game. We really want this to be more like a filmic performance. Something at the time, the reference was like an episode of 24. And we really wanted to create sort of an intimacy that is, you know, not just sort of screaming and yelling. And I mean, there's some screaming and yelling, of course, but overall that it was because of the technology having changed, because of the amount of sort of facial expression that could be sort of included, and because of how then what they were really looking for was to create, from the beginning it seemed anyway, from the very first session we ever had recording, we want this to seem real. And what's incredible now, almost 10 years later, is what you get from that in this magical world is this emotional bond to these characters.
I think everyone would agree with that, right? Preston, do you have any, you're a man that knows everything about, you are a Mass Effect encyclopedia in many ways. Do you have a favorite planet? Or?
Yeah, Tuchanka. The reason I've got a soft spot for it because we didn't actually plan the Krogan. They were not part of the universe. Actually, it was one day I was going through concept art with some of the designers, and we saw a picture of this, reptilian race that we're all like, we're all transfixed by, and the Krogan came out of that. I love it when designers get to be inspired by some of the amazing concept art that gets done at BioWare, and that was one of the examples where one of the richest storylines in the entire trilogy just came out of a picture that somebody pulled out of their head. But I love the growth on Tuchanka. I love the fact that we've dealt with the Krogan in a really deep way on every single game, and the growth of the Krogan, and it's one of the subplots that you care the most about in terms of it's got a gravity to it, given the seriousness of their situation that I've always really been drawn to.
Were there favorite, places where planets you wish you could have gone that you weren't able to, or races that you didn't explore as much as you wanted to? I mean, there's always trade-offs. I mean, Casey, were there any examples there of things that you didn't get as far as you wanted to, or left open?
I think by the time we kind of rounded out Mass Effect 3 and got into DLC, even whether it's through the story or finding a way to get to these places in the books or comics and stuff like that, I think we pretty much got to all the places that we really wanted to. But there's always more, and that's kind of how we designed the universe. Is we wanted to be able to tell thousands of stories, so there's always more stuff you could think about. Like, I would love to see a story where you're a private detective on the Citadel, or let's learn more about Garrus, before you met him and stuff like that. So I think there's endless stories that we could tell, but I kind of feel like we touched on all the big things that I wanted to see.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more the small stuff. Like, for some reason, I've always wanted to, and we never really got a chance to explore it. There was just never any place to put it that felt correct. But I wanted to always learn more about the Thorians. Like, what was the Thorian? Where did he come from? You know, what was his origins? Was there more of them? And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to deal with that species a little bit more, with a bit more in-depth treatment. It just, you know, but it never fit or whatever. So it's always one of those things. But in the end, it's actually one of my favorite plots from it is my favorite plot from ME1.
I always wanted more Yogg. The game needs more Yogg. I wanted Yogg space pirates and Yogg henchmen, and it didn't happen, but I can imagine.
Parrish, was there a scene that you never got to do that you wish you would have been able to do?
You know what? Not really. We kind of got to do, you know, the big space battle, the intimate. Well, you know what? Actually, so now that I think about it, the big, big epic kind of ground battles, like armies versus armies. That would have been something that would have been nice to do. It just didn't, you know, we just didn't fit. But one character that or race that I really liked were the Elcor. I love their design. I loved the way they moved. I loved, like kind of everything about them. So I was disappointed I didn't get to do more scenes with those guys.
Yeah, the Elcor, the Hanar, the Volus, those all started out as characters. We knew we wanted, we could focus on some of the aliens that would be in your squad, and they had to do lots of things, but we wanted more, you know, especially in Mass Effect 1, as you walk around the Citadel, we wanted to show there's more to this universe. So we designed a few aliens that, you know, they were kind of meant to stand there and look interesting in Mass Effect 1. And then, but, you know, like all the different facets, we then, with next games, we kind of want to explore a little bit more of those things. So by the end, I think the Elcor was able to actually walk around. And that was kind of a triumph for us, but it would be really cool to take some of these aliens and kind of learn more about them and see them in detail. That's actually where we enjoy, you know, fan fiction and stuff like that, because it's a chance for us to learn more about what is Blasto up to, you know.
And they read it all, right?
I've got a printed out Blasto poster, you know. So that's where you can help us is to show us what it's like on a world full of jellyfish. And
well, I'm sure there are things, though, that as you release, you know, all three games to the fans, the things that surprise you probably that catch on the way they do, right? I mean, does anyone have any memories of things that, so little thing that's like, why did this become, you know?
For me, it was I Should Go. Which I finally got my chance in Citadel DLC. There's a mission where you end up trapped in a vault with your henchmen, and I'm trying to figure out how are we going to get out of this. And not to give anything away, the Shepard's talking to a bad guy who resembles himself, who says I should go to Shepard, and I just totally got to make fun of that finally. The writers have been watching that for years, how that was just becoming this big thing.
Right.
So, a lot of fun.
Anyone else have any memories of things that...
Blasto.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the, I didn't know that it was being put into the game when it was. I was sort of just playing through the hub one day, and I got to that part in the game, and I stopped. And I just sat there and listened for like a minute or two, you know, while this dialogue rolled along, and I was like, I just was laughing at my desk with the headphones on. And I went into the writer's room and was like, who wrote Blasto? And I'm like, yeah, it's Patrick, right? But you know, it was something that we had to keep from going a little too hard on. But I think that we put it in the game to the appropriate amount, and I just love that character. I got him as a wallpaper, actually.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun in Citadel DLC. I went to Patrick and I said, "Can I have your blessing to put him in? Because I want Javik to meet Blasto." So, and that was a scene where not only did we get to make fun of Blasto, but we got to make fun of Vorcha and Volus, and it was all these crazy things that had sort of started out as fan fiction, I think. Things we'd seen on the forums, being able to wrap that into this great scene with Blasto.
Dusty, I'm sure there's some Normandy things that caught on, right?
Oh, no, any things that come up. Well, of course, there's the space hamster that's very close to my heart. And that comes from Preston. It definitely is that reference from a previous game. So, woo! Yeah. So I was so happy that because for a while there in Mass Effect 3, it was like, well, where will Boo be? Can we have him? That kind of thing. When I had that last little bit of minute towards the end of the production to get him running around in the Jax area down below. which was very warm. I got to play that and test that and tune it, and I'm like, yeah, I got Boo again. There I go, I got Boo again.
I remember on Citadel DLC, didn't you want it that the very final mission we get one last elevator ride down, right?
Oh, the elevator.
One last.
So if you're saying the things I wish we could have gotten to the game, it's like on. So I did the elevator in the Normandy and ME1, and I worked on the Citadel, and the elevator's there, so you might know. Elevators are a bit of my bane, and I'm like, okay, in Mass Effect 3, I'm gonna get the elevator into the Normandy, a functioning, working elevator. And yeah, due to some technical things that happened, it was like we're getting right to the end of Mass Effect 3, and it's like, oh gosh, the elevator is actually just as slow as it was in ME1. We can't do this. So at the very last minute, so much work went into it. It was like, we gotta yank it out. But then in the DLC, the Citadel DLC, you get one little moment where there it is in all its glory. The elevator, you ride it from deck 2 down to deck 5. Oh, damn elevators.
The elevators. All right, well, now we're going to move on to a little lightning round of some questions that you guys submitted over Twitter that I have in front of me here. So yes, if you submitted them, it may be in here. These are just be quick sort of either-or questions where we're going to go down the line to have these guys answer some things that I guess people are wondering about. First one, this comes from Ben Meets World, and he asks, Rex or Grunt?
I'm going to say Rex.
Rex.
I'll go Grunt.
Oh, Rex.
Rex?
Oh, man.
All right, unanimous decision. Another one from Ollie the Outlaw, Paragon or Renegade?
I have to be Paragon.
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 I'd go Paragon.
Paragon.
All right, Paragon.
All right, a more controversial one here, the Mako or Hammerhead? This, by the way, comes from Adlong Jandis.
You know, I love the Mako, I have to say.
I'm going to go with the Hammerhead.
I like the Hammerhead too. Yeah, I like the way it moved.
Yeah, I'm Team Hammerhead because in Overlord we got to run over space cows with it. So.
No, Mako. Mako all the way.
I'm going to go with this guy.
All right, next one comes from Bry Guy Asher on Twitter and asks, Jack or Miranda?
Oh. You know what? One of my favorite characters is Jack. So I'm going to pick Jack.
Miranda.
No, Jack. Yeah, all the way.
Yeah, I'll go with the psychotic biotic.
Jack.
Yeah.
Next one, SR1 or SR2, Dusty. This one comes from at Andrew Jamal.
So I'm gonna say SR2 because we put so much more work into fleshing it out, and a lot of that was Dusty's. So SR2.
SR2.
Yeah, SR2.
SR1 for nostalgia's sake.
Oh, you jerk. SR2.
If you're sitting up here and everyone just said SR2, you'd say SR2 as well.
All right, it might get a little awkward here on the panel. The next question comes from A Blue Flying Car, Kaden or Ashley?
So is this the choice where I'm
choice,
picking who's gonna die,
I think
or
that.
am I picking who I like and is gonna live?
I don't know. Is a Blue Flying Car in the audience here?
Well, with Raphael here, I'm gonna say Kaden.
Okay,
Gotta save Kaden.
Save Kaden.
Nah, I'm gonna have to pass.
Nah, I gotta go with Ash. Sorry, Raphael.
I'll go with Ash.
I'm gonna go Cade.
Long live Ash.
All right, these are getting good. Next one from Eska212, Pet Fish or Space Hamster?
So you know what? The pet fish, that's an example of something where I was playing the game, and I come into the quarters, and somebody has put an aquarium in there, and there's fish, I had no idea we were doing this. So because that was a total surprise for me, I had no idea.
That was a somewhat awkward meeting for me.
Hey, so I hear we've got an aquarium.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go with hamster.
Yeah, I gotta go with hamster too.
Yeah, I own a hamster, so I go with hamster.
Space hamsters fly.
It's all with the hamster. All right. Next one here. We got a little bit of stat of this from the infographic on what you guys did, but for the team, genophage, cure or not, and that comes from Tenkawa.
Oh, I think you got to cure it.
Yeah, you got to cure it.
Yeah, cure it.
Cure it so long as you have Rex.
Cure.
All right, popular opinion. Next one from AWW102, Citadel, quiet party or dance party?
I love the rowdy party. It was a ton of fun. They did a great job. That was another one where, the writers had a ton of fun, lots of freedom in building out these characters, so I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to go with the rowdy party as well. It was a lot of work for the designer who did that. There's like almost half as many variables just in that one party as there was in all of KOTOR. So it was a lot of work that went into that. So I'm going to pick the rowdy party as well.
Yeah, rowdy party. I love to see Shepard dance. So anytime you can bust a move is good.
I'll go rowdy party. I remember when Casey said, I think the DLC should be a little lighter in tone. And I don't think he understood the floodgates he was opening with that, with the writers, ending with this party. But that's where you get to see Grunt drunk in the shower, so.
Yeah. Love the Shepherd Shuffle, so gotta go rowdy.
Who doesn't like a good party? Rowdy.
Rowdy, all right. Next one, let's see. Let's go to, all right, this is a simple one, but we'll see what you guys think. This comes from @JBirchie, Shep or Fem Shep? Ooh.
Can I say both? Both? Can I say both? I say both.
We got yes over here.
I got 2 daughters, so Fem Shep.
I played Bro Shep for my personal shepherd, yeah. No claps, yeah. Crickets across.
I got to go with Fem Shep. I tried to put a lot of effort into the Garrus romance, so Fem Shep.
2 daughters, Fem Shep.
I'm going with both.
Popular
We're both
answer.
friends.
All right, next choice that I think we have here. Let me find it. Yes, this comes from @Carmel Cascade, Quarians or Geth?
Well, see, that's one where I think you can say both. So I'm going to have to try and save them both.
I saved them both.
Wow, so Legion is one of my personal favorites, so yeah, I went with the Geth.
Yeah, I got to go Quarian or Patrick Weeks will hit me.
I'm gonna say Geth.
Yeah, I'm a Geth. Yeah.
All right. From Luke Cluid Fox, Afterlife or Purgatory?
So I thought Purgatory was awesome. I think it was beautiful. There were really cool moments in there. But my favorite's always been Afterlife. That's a place that I'd love to see. In fact, the first time I walked in there, when we had all the music and everything in there, I was really impressed. So I want to go to Afterlife.
Yeah, I agree. Afterlife.
Yeah, we saw Afterlife come together. That was something amazing.
Oh yeah, Afterlife.
Afterlife.
2.
Yeah.
All right, and our final one on the lightning round list comes from La Crime. Garrus, shoot the bottle or not?
He's competitive. He wouldn't want to know that that you let him win. So I think you shoot the bottle.
He was having a hard moment there, so I didn't. I let him win.
Yeah, I couldn't do it either. Yeah, I didn't shoot it.
See, when I wrote that scene, I'm like, well, who's not going to let Garrus win, right? But apparently there's a few of you, but yeah, got to let Garrus take the shot.
I'm honest with my friends.
Oh.
I shot the ball.
Garrus.
All right, moving back to some of the other questions. We've talked a lot about the game, the characters, the universe, but one of the things that that I at least documented when I was out there with you guys in Edmonton was the team and the journey that you guys have all been on. From actors to designers to writers to producers to artists to birth this game. Do you guys have any memories? 9 years later, as some of you sort of think about other things that you're doing. A favorite moment from those 9 years. It could be something a meeting where the team was together or a launch party. I mean, what stands out, starting with you, Casey, in your mind of that really encapsulates what this past 9 years has been like for you guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is just the journey from not even being able to see or really get our hands around what we're building to being able to see it now, and just remembering these moments when we started to get a sense of what it would be like. And the first cutscene test that we did was just a character literally sliding on their feet down a hallway, and you could see the lights moving across the helmet and reflections and stuff like that. And these little moments where you get a sense of what the game's going to be like. And probably the first really big one was when, as a group of leads, we were playing through the very beginning of Mass Effect 1. That was the first section of the whole series that we pushed all the way to final quality, is that opening sequence, and you go in with Captain Anderson, you're looking at the big screen and the Reapers attacking. That was the scene we pushed all the way to being finished and polished first. And I remember being in those meetings where we were looking at this just a few months away from launching or being finished Mass Effect 1, and realizing that it's a pretty amazing experience that we're building here, and the music and the acting and the sound and everything. We were really excited with how far we would be able to push things.
So for me, one of the memories is I would meet with my staff. I had like 50 designers who worked with me on Mass Effect 3, and a lot of them have been with me for the whole trilogy or most of the trilogy. And this past January, I had my last meeting with them as a team. So that was it was way more emotional than I thought it would be. Like I spoke to them, and we watched actually the launch trailers from all 3 games. And at the end of it, it was a little dusty in the room, and but that's for me. That was a very special moment for me, because basically, I get to come to work every day and work with really brilliant people, and my staff are no exception to that. They make it fun to work every day. So.
Yeah, I think for me, it comes from the end of Mass Effect 2, when we were sort of putting it together between when you go through the Omega-3 relay and then the credits. I'd work with the designer on that, Keith Hayward, and what we would do is we would sit down in the morning and we would just play through that entire section along with a QA guy named Chris. And when we first started, it was broken so badly, and we would just take notes, and literally we were we do 20 notes of this stuff. And there was a point where we were kind of looking at each other going man, I don't know if this is going to, because we were toggling so many different variables, and there was just so much content that we were trying to get in, so much memory that we were using. It was really, it was really touch and go for a while. But the moment that I kind of knew that this is really coming together was we got it down to 1 page of notes. So every day we would play through it for 2 hours, take notes, and then go work as late as we could, and then come back the next morning and play through it again, and just day after day after day after day. And it took weeks to get this thing under control. And when we got down to 1 page of notes, that's when we kind of looked at each other and said, I think we're actually going to be able to put this thing down. And that, for me, that was a really high moment, because it was so massive, and it just worked as well. That sequence, I think we really enjoyed it. So.
I think for me, most recently, it would be the final scene of the Citadel DLC with Shepard standing at the bridge with Normandy. It was a scene all the writers, I'd written out the backbone of the scene, and then all the writers went in and filled in their particular henchman, who could be Shepard's love interest. But still not, having a sense of how we'd like that to come together. But then Parrish here actually is the one who pulled that whole scene off, and I think it came together beautifully, because it really is our way of essentially saying goodbye to the trilogy, thanks to the fans.
Well, and not to steal your thunder, but what was great about that sequence is I also animated the opening of Mass Effect. So when Shepard's kind of walking through and the ship's going through the relay. So for me personally, that was great.
Closure.
You got to open ME1 and I got to close out the DLC, so I really enjoyed that.
And then the most embarrassing moment, I wrote Overlord, which was Mass Effect 2 DLC, and if you've played it, there's a character in there who's an autistic savant, brilliant mathematical genius. He's constantly naming square roots. Well, one day I went down to his office, he wanted to talk to me about something, and I had gotten the square roots wrong. And this is my first writing. The first thing I'd done at BioWare was to get the square roots wrong. So that was a little embarrassing, but we went back, re-recorded it, all worked out.
You're not a mathematician.
That's right. That's right, Casey.
I know for me, I always remember Preston's humor. No matter how stressed out we got, Preston could always come in. It was almost like a dad figure, and it just could get us cracking up. And like for example, I don't know if you guys remember in ME1, there's the space cows, where they look kind of like a cow, but they have these like little hands in front of them, little arms that kind of stick out. And Preston comes in and goes, "Oh my God, you can't trust those. You can't trust a cow that can milk himself." It's like, those little hands, they go in your pockets. So that was where we got Shifty Cow. If you remember, there's this uncharted world in ME1, just out in the blue, where there's a hill where there's this cow, and you look at him and it says Shifty Looking Cow. And he does nothing if you look at him, but if you turn your back, he comes sneaking up behind you. And you look at him, he stops, and you look away. And if you let him get close enough to you, your credits start going ding, 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 ding. So you get away. That's Preston.
You know, the most sort of poignant moment I remember was just recording this sort of the farewell scene and kind of realizing that it was the farewell scene and sort of being in sort of a, you know, when we record, we're kind of in a room all by ourselves with a microphone and, you know, there's someone patched in from Canada, you know, and we're kind of laying this down. And there was sort of this awesome moment of sort of realizing that, wow, this is kind of it. And I said, the fans are really gonna freak out about this. And they said, yeah. And we, you know, it's kind of like where you can't quite register the enormity of what has just occurred or what you're sort of in the middle of. It sort of felt almost slow-mo. I know when Mass Effect 3 hit, it was so exciting, and then of course there was a very strong pushback, as we've talked about. But I guess I have to say, in my humble opinion, you know, just the fact now that we do have sort of an end to something that's been so remarkable has as we look back at it anyway, has made it even that much more precious. These characters, these people, these worlds that we've been in. I mean, the fact that the DLC has been so great and so wonderfully received is fantastic. But also just that it's a remarkable thing that's occurred. You know, it's sort of, I think, beyond probably even anyone's wildest imaginings of how huge and successful and poignant this experience has been. But to have it have sort of a beginning, a middle, and then an end has only, in a way, kind of given it, I don't know, made the whole thing that much more precious and something, you know, that we'll all sort of share and hold in our memory. And I mean, from literally from the very inside all the way here we are to the outside, all of us have this sort of group encounter, and it's quite an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's been an amazing 9 years. So Casey, that obviously brings us to the question of kind of, you know, what's next, because you guys have very publicly stated that, you know, Mass Effect will certainly continue. You, I know, and your team are working on kind of a new IP as well. What can you share with the fans here on sort of the future of Mass Effect and what you guys are doing at BioWare up in Edmonton?
Sure. I mean, we want to make sure that Mass Effect continues on. So there's some really cool things that we're doing there, I think. First of all, as you probably know, there's a movie in development, and we've got some amazing partners on that with the Arads and Legendary Pictures. And we've been developing it for a while, and that hopefully should be seen as a good thing, because what we're looking at are, I think, the right things to make sure that, you know, it's going to be a great movie. You know, it's not just going to be a movie, it's going to be really special. So we continue to develop that. We are starting to get ready to develop another Mass Effect game, and it's going to be a new thing. It's going to be, thank you. So, we want to be able to give fans an opportunity to get back into the world and with these things that you've come to know and love about the Mass Effect experience, but start something fresh and new and a new way for you to explore the whole universe of Mass Effect. So we're working on that, and that's going to be primarily developed in Montreal, and it's something that we're still involved in as core leads on the franchise. So I continue to be the executive producer for that, and kind of the ongoing, Mass Effect has become, thanks to all of you, so much more than just a game or a game series. So those things will continue on. And then we are developing a whole new fictional universe at BioWare, and so that's, for myself and Preston and a lot of the people here on the stage, that's kind of our next thing, is we're focusing on building something new the way we did at the very beginning on Mass Effect.
Wow, very cool. All right, so something for everybody. Before we go, there's a great video that I think we're premiering here for the first time, right? Which is a retrospective look back at the Mass Effect franchise. So check this out. It's a great look at what the past 9 years have meant to all of us that have played the game. Check it out.
I'm happy that we were able to make the trilogy and able to tell this story, and that it's not like we could just go and make it, that we needed the fans, we needed the people to kind of believe in this universe, believe in these characters, believe in Shepard's story.
We've accomplished what we wanted to. We accomplished so much of what we wanted to. We told a story that had integrity, and that chapter is now over, and I feel like it is right to move on, right to let that go.
I think when you see just how impassioned the players get about their Shepard and about the characters that they've kept alive and the choices that they've made, that kind of tells me that along the way we did something right as far as really just creating an experience that people could really believe in.
Prepare yourselves for the arrival.
All of this, the whole universe, we've created this galaxy of stuff that is so much better than I think we could imagine. That's because we have this amazingly talented team. And I think the other thing that I'm really thankful for is the fact that we were able to get it all done. And if you think about all the games or even studios over this 8 years we've been working on this that got canceled, or studios that got closed, and it is a tough industry. To be able to say that you want to finish 3 games and you're going to try and tell that story, and then to get to the end and we were able to finish it all. It is pretty amazing, and I think we're very fortunate to have been able to get to the end and finish the process.
In the entertainment industry, I think that we have a gift to be able to provide people with an escape, especially in this day and age where people really need to escape more.
I started out as just a BioWare fan like so many other people. I still remember the day I went to the store and bought Mass Effect 1. I was very excited. I'd been following all the press on that game leading up to its release. Ran home and really just played the heck out of that game and was blown away by the universe they'd created and the characters and the story.
I've been with these characters for a really long time, and it does feel like seeing friends that you're probably never going to see again. A lot of bittersweetness to it.
I go home and I talk to my wife, and she looks at me and she goes, "What's wrong?" Like, you know you're getting ready to say goodbye to a very close friend. It's something that's been with me for 6+ years now, so very aware right now.
What's going on?
Couldn't say. Just told me they needed you.
I feel incredibly lucky to be able to play a female character like this, to be able to play a leader who isn't necessarily a man or a woman, just a leader.
He's a Spectre. Everything he touches is classified.
I miss Garrus. I love Garrus. I remember playing Mass Effect 1 and not being able to romance Garrus and being pretty upset about that. And then in Mass Effect 2, I remember the head touch. And I was like, this is all I needed.
For me, it was Legion, and I think it's because I had his missions in ME2. I finished his missions in ME3, so I had this weird bond with his character, and I enjoyed his character a lot. Like, he was written well, and I'm going to miss that character quite a bit.
Professor Morton Solace?
I really liked Morton, mostly because he sort of made Omega for me. Omega sort of had its thing going for it, but it wasn't quite there, and it wasn't until Morton was standing there in it, being what he was, that I think it all kind of gelled and made a lot more sense to me. So Morton made a big chunk of the world work for me, and his finale is amazing, of course, so there's a lot to miss with him.
I really love how much I was able to contribute to Morton's philosophy.
I help people, sometimes heal patients, sometimes execute dangerous enemies.
It felt like something that was deeper and a little bit more introspective than we were able to do in other parts of the game.
Yes, unexpected to be working with Cerberus.
The Mass Effect fans are like on any other. At the cons, on Twitter, on Facebook, the passion and the expression of deep feeling about these characters and the connectedness to them is incredible, absolutely incredible. I'll forever be thinking about that.
I think it really motivated the team to give it that extra little bit and in their own way say goodbye to some of these characters. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the really strong scenes or performances sort of in the last year or so.
We read you. Give me your location.
The Mass Effect universe is huge, right? It's vast. There are so many different stories that we can tell. Shepard is one person in this universe, and him and his friends are great, and we've enjoyed them for all these years, but there are so many more things that we can show and talk about. So I'm really looking forward to working on what the franchise has in the future.
In a way, it is bittersweet, but I'm happy to see the sunset on the entire trilogy. What we'll be able to do is bring something new and fresh next time around. And Shepard's story was one that obviously was meant to be told in 3 games, and I think now that we've told it, we can look back and learn a lot from what we've done, learn a lot from the story that we've told.
I think what's really cool about where we're at now is we still have one more piece to deliver, and that's the Citadel DLC. And then once that's out, the nice thing is that Mass Effect is not over, and we have a team that's working on the next Mass Effect game. And we're thinking about what that would be and how we can bring back a lot of these things that we love about the Mass Effect universe, and to continue to tell the story and to continue to find ways to live in this universe.
So long, Commander Shepard. It was really fun being you.
Big round of applause, obviously, the guys, BioWare, Raphael, amazing job of the Mass Effect franchise. BioWare base, it's room 206 AB, where Casey and the team will be signing some autographs and meeting with a lot of the fans. Thanks again for coming to the panel, and again, congratulations to the team on a great job.